little bit now about why we're doing this and why it works. Farmers are in the business of harvesting energy from the sun. They plant their crops, in this case corn, plant their crops, let the sun provide the free energy. They run it through the biological processes of the plant, photosynthesis, to produce biomass, and eventually we end up with something we can sell. Now, scientists have told us for years now that the productivity, really the yield that can be marketed, this is proportional and a function of the chlorophyll content in the leaf times the intensity and the quality of the incoming light. So with these two factors together, what we're able to work with is the chlorophyll content. We have little control over the quality and intensity of the incoming light, but the imagery that we gather from the plant tells us a lot about the chlorophyll content and the biomass. So that's what we're trying to understand when we take a picture or we use a sensor in the field. So where's the nitrogen in the corn plant? Well, about 70% of it is tied up and associated with this chlorophyll molecule. And that's the green light that we see. The human eye is especially keen at detecting greenness. Not so good with some of the other colors, but green is especially good. Now the red light, that's used in photosynthesis. There's another one that is detected by the sensors, but is not used by the plant, and it is not captured by normal color photography or color infrared photography. This lies between the red and the near infrared. The near infrared light cannot be detected by the human eye, but it is reflected by the plant tissue. It is not used by plants, but it is reflected. And so this is very key to being able to tell how much biomass is there. The red edge, I said, lies between the two different wave bands, and it basically integrates chlorophyll and biomass. And some of the sensors that are out there available to do this now are Crop Circle by Holland Scientific. It's also sold by Optrix through AgLeader, and CropSpec is sold and marketed by Topcon. So they have ground-based sensors to also make these kind of maps. So let's go back to photosynthesis for a moment. We said that chlorophyll is involved in capturing the energy from the plants. And now we've got both blue light and red light are capturing this energy from the sun in the process of running it through chlorophyll. And over time it produces biomass. And so we like to be able to measure this biomass. The reason we can do that is because plants do not use biomass or don't use near infrared light, and so it's reflected. The amount of this near infrared light now that is reflected by living plant tissue is what we're trying to measure. So when we get all said and done, we've either got sensors or we've got cameras, and they're measuring the disappearance of red light or the abundance of reflected near infrared light. So those are the two major light wave bands that we're trying to measure with remote sensing. We should talk a little bit about how we put this together and how we quantify it. Going back 40 or 50 years, people have worked to develop different kinds of vegetation indices for specific crops and different situations depending on the kind of sensor they have. And so there's 50 or more vegetation indices that have been published. What the goal is basically to identify some feature that's related to crop vigor. And in the case of corn, it's basically nutrient status, because corn plants use so much nitrogen. The first assumption is that if we see a differences in biomass, it's probably and somehow related to nitrogen status. But ultimately, what we sell is yield, and so we have to make the linkage now between crop vigor and yield. And so this is where we scratch our head a bit sometimes, and this is the opportunity also for then determining what we can do better next year. So I show you one of the common vegetation indices here called Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. This was first published in about 1974, so it's been around for a long time. Their intent and desire was to quantify leaf area index in a forest. So that's why and how it was developed. You'll notice that it contains wave bands for near infrared. That's going to tell us something about biomass. And it's also got a component for red light to tell us something about chlorophyll. So this has now been put together, and it's been tested in many ways, many situations, but this is the vegetation index that is most convenient when you're using film. Remember, film is either blue, green, red, or if you're using color infrared, it's green, red, and near infrared. We're only going to get 3 bands from most cameras. So let's